This is Darci's Corner, and it's June 6th, 2022, and it's a different vibe this year to the last couple of years, in part because people have just become used to the pandemic. It's not really over, but we are kind of going back to the way life sort of was before. There's an entire Pride section on the Disney Plus channel, and kind of like there's a Star Wars section. So I clicked on the Pride section just to see what was in there this month. And one of them is this hero project for Marvel, where they take a kid and they make them a hero, and it makes sense that Disney would do stuff like that. That's kind of their shtick. And Disney is Marvel now. But the one they focused on for the Pride Month is a little trans girl, and how she's become the spokesperson for trans people in her area, and her parents are ministers, or the dad is anyways, and they are super supportive, and they're just helping her live her best life. And part of that is going around to places giving presentations and talking about being trans, which is, that's a big risk they're taking for her, because she passes, and so if you don't tell people, they won't know, and that's for the safety of the trans people, especially young trans people like that, because people can be so cruel. But anyway, she's helping these other kids by being a spokesperson and speaking about the things they have to go through. And she was doing the presentation at this classroom, and the other mom of one of the children at the classroom comes up to her and just starts crying because she's so grateful that this girl's putting herself out there like that. And I watched that, and I started crying because, one, why couldn't that be my mom? Right? And so many of us have that experience where we're like, why couldn't that be our mom? Or dad, or whoever. And it's not. And it makes life so hard. But I wasn't crying out of self-pity necessarily, though. I was also crying out of happiness and joy that those kids do have moms and dads that support them. And those kids have the supports they need to be themselves and express themselves and get through this process with as little pain as possible. Puberty is difficult enough when you're going through the wrong one and nobody understands. It's certainly not any easier trying to go through the opposite and being a spectacle for people, which is the problem that many of us adults have now who are trying to deal with this in adulthood, is we have to do this in public, in view of everybody, and it's so much harder. We wish we could have done that when we were 10 or 12 or however old these kids are. The little girl in the Hero Project, she started at 8. And what a blessing she has. And the fact that she's advocating for the rights for those of us who can't advocate for ourselves, because she has people behind her protecting her, I'm sure. I'm sure that her mom and dad are very protective of who's allowed anywhere near her outside of her friend group and her peer group at school. If they go any place where there's a stage or anything like that, you better believe they're on guard. Anyway, it's a wonderful world that we live in if we keep it wonderful and we embrace that. And she talked about wanting to see our history taught in schools right from the get-go. I want to see that too. We are in history. We've been here the whole time, but we're not noted in any of the history books because it wasn't polite to talk about, so they didn't write it down. They pretended that we weren't there, or that we weren't trans, or that we weren't gay. And we were. But we should learn about Marsha P. Johnson. I should have learned about her in high school. She died while I was attending the 8th grade. I should have learned about her before that happened. I definitely should have learned about it after it happened. She's an important historical figure for people like me. Anyway, I'm glad that we exist, and I'm glad we're being seen, and I'm glad it's on the little screen and the big screen. I'm glad it's in the classrooms. It needs to be in the classrooms more. It needs to be in all the classrooms. We are part of society, and we deserve to be seen. And there's nothing shameful about us. Mr. Rogers used to say, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. Which is a little bit ironic because he had a gay man working for him on his set, and he told him, you have to hide that or I'm going to lose my one sponsor, and then the show goes away. So in Mr. Rogers' day, being gay was not mentionable because it wasn't manageable. But guess what? We're in the 2000s now, 2022 right now. It's mentionable. It's manageable. We don't have to hide, and we don't have to feel any kind of shame for existing, even if those around us are confused on that. They shouldn't be. We are all children of God, I believe. And we are exactly the way we're meant to be. I was always trans. God always knew it. And I never need to be ashamed of it. And every child deserves to have that message. You are exactly the way you're meant to be, and you do not have to be ashamed. That is so important. Anyway, this is Darci's Corner. Just enjoying Pride Month as much as I can, and trying not to be an emotional mess, which is interesting. So, peace.